the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends his people from the conquerors. Praise Yah, because he is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends his people from the conquerors. Now we stand in Torah to live our lives, because the Creator of all is by our side. There will be some violence going on in the world, but we have the shield of Yisrael. Praise Yahuwah, because he is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends his people from the conquerors. Praise Yah, because he is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends his people from the conquerors. Even the fathers of this generation cling to Yah, the Almighty. Let all the nations from this generation come to Yah while there's time. Even the fathers of this generation cling to Yah, the Almighty. Let all the nations from this generation come to Yah while there's time. Praise Yahuwah, because he is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends his people from the conquerors. Now we stand in Torah to live our lives, because the Creator of all is by our side. There will be some violence going on in the world, but we have the shield of Yisrael. Praise Yahuwah, because He is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends His people from the conquerors. Praise Yah, because He is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends His people from the conquerors. Even the fathers of this generation cling to Yah, the Almighty. Let all the nations from this generation come to Yah while there's time. Even the fathers of this generation cling to Yah, the Almighty. Let all the nations from this generation come to Yah while there's time. Praise Yahuwah, because He is the shield against all human swords. He protects and defends His people from the conquerors.
Well, shalom, shalom,
Shalom, my brother. How are you today, my handsome brother?
shalom, Kifa, Apostle Peter Michael Mark. We were talking about you last night.
I hope it was good.
Of course,
Well, that's
I
nice. Nice
I
to have
got
friends.
I gathered the family together, and we went into the living room, and we watched that episode that you did on Shabbat.
Mm.
As we say in Yiddish or in German, "Oise Geferlach," which means marveloso.
Marvelous.
First of all, you had to get out of the way so Mindy can get into the center of the screen. Second of all,
Oh, man.
topics that you talked about, and I told you a long time ago, in private, that it would be nice to have the two of you do teachings on marriage because, Lord, I say that tongue in cheek. Lord knows we've got some crapola, Spagnola examples. We
Yes.
don't have a lot of good examples, and if two people are not killing each other and they're
Yeah.
actually smiling, and like you guys were saying, um, come let us reason together, man. That episode was the best episode that I've seen on Shabbat in a long time because real people being real, and and I do a lot of teachings on marriage. I also live it, but the thing is, that don't make me a marriage expert.
Right.
That do, that doesn't come by title or osmosis.
No.
That comes by come let us reason together. In other words, you're going to have conflict,
Right.
in relationships and in marriage, but the reasoning with like you were ministering left and right, reasoning with reasonable parties. You need reasonable. If one party is not reasonable, that's why I want to bring up. I'm gonna let you talk, but I got a lot of stuff on my mind that
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been covered. In other words, the people that are going to be listening to this broadcast, I don't think that they've ever heard marriage talk, covenant talk, counseling talk. I mean, I got stuff in my head that's never been answered. So
Mm.
the apostles are meeting at the gates.
Happy to do so, too. And,
Might as
you know,
well, might as well
Mindy,
address it. Might as
Mindy
well.
tells me all the time, she said, you really need to teach men. You really need to teach husbands. And I'm like, I'm trying. I have a lot of topics I cover. She's like, but she constantly encourages me.
But like
It
Spurgeon,
has been for years.
but like
Uh,
Spurgeon said, no. Sometimes you don't open your mouth. You preach the gospel, and every blue moon you open your mouth. In other
yeah.
words, and like you always say, 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7, we got a model. There are no models. These pastors are liars. They're serial monogamists. They got a wife on the side, but they put the wife on the front row so that everybody could be impressed and keep the money flowing. And you know the deal because there are issues people don't want to confront. A lot of men are created to be polygynous, and then in order to curtail and please the world and please the Greco-Roman system, they've got their trophy wife on the front row. But who only Yahuwah knows what goes on in the pastor's office after dark, and it's a plague. Serial monogamy is a plague. All the self-righteous people who think I've been faithful all these years. Well, if you have, you're one of the 20% that has, right? But biblical faithfulness is not this. You marry one woman for 15 years, get divorced, then you go on to the younger model, another 15 years, then you get divorced. No, that's serial monogamy. That is
Yeah.
not
When you define
that is
that,
not kadosh. That is not kadosh.
yes,
Monogamy
when you
monogamy
define
is
that,
yeah,
that was
monogamy is kadosh. Plural is kadosh, right? I told you I'm fired up.
you
Mon-
are fired up. Well, let
let
me
me
just interject one thing, just to take those that are following along. If I
Why are
may,
you interrupting me so soon?
I'm so sorry, but I want
All
to
right, go
just
ahead.
I want to
All right.
compliment you. This word serial monogamy was actually something that took me back when I first heard you say it. Right, so I was like, "What is he talking about?" But then I thought about your point, and that really hit because of the commitment to this thought process, right? You're describing exactly the phenomenon that you would see. And in what you're eliminating is the 80% that are much more diverse than this other portion. So I think the numbers are actually showing you what the numbers are revealing to us are the holes in the Greco-Roman system. But go ahead
But
now.
the condemnation that comes from believers is very, very sickening, because again, let me finish my thought on this. Monogamy is kadosh when it's done monogamously. Plural is kadosh when it's done plural. The problem with this society, and believers have bought into the soup. They've drunk the soup. They think that serial monogamy is condemned in Scripture because Yahuwah says in Malachi, "Why have you done treacherously against the wife of your youth?" Hello? Why have you done treacherously against the wife of your youth? So the practice that most believers are accustomed to, whether they practice it or not, is condemned in Scripture. Whereas what the untrained and unwise believers condemn, which is lifetime monogamy or lifetime covenant polygyny, that they condemn. So all the while, they are practicing something that Yahuwah condemns, serial monogamy, but they're condemning something Yahuwah approves. It's like up is down, left is right, bitter is sweet. And so this is not going to be a popular podcast. Matter of fact, I don't expect a lot of people to watch this, because a lot of people are so used to having their ears tickled that they can't handle the truth. I can barely handle the truth, and I've been studying this for 40 years. People can't handle the truth.
It's a dicey subject.
We're apostles. We are not wimpies. We're
No,
not
we're not
wimpy.
scared. We're not scared of the topic. And we're talking to the world, not just America,
Right.
not just Western nations or countries that have a cultural bent. The elements that are in the Scripture are very clear. You cannot condemn that which would then throw away your patriarchs, right? So
Yep.
you can't do that. So what you have to do is you have to understand, and this is where I think the balance comes in and the wisdom comes in, because Yahuwah has designed people uniquely. Some people are eunuchs, so they are completely outside of this entire conversation. So there's an extreme on the other side, right? And so what do we say when we see that extreme? We say, well, that's the choice of a person, and they're perfectly fine to go zero. Oh, zero's okay with you.
Kosher.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and eunuch is okay, right? Because there's various ways to serve Yahuwah, and we see in the Scripture how that the eunuch can then serve Yahuwah in a certain way, right? We saw the eunuch.
One exception. There's covenant eunuch and there's worldly eunuch.
Well, no, I understand that. I'm talking about covenant. I'm only talking about the correct. We're not going to discuss the incorrect. There's no point in that. So let's talk about the correct. The correct eunuch that Mashiach even references and says some are made eunuchs, right, for the kingdom. Okay. So let's take the perfect example of each. Instead of looking at flaws and instead of looking at mistakes, and instead of looking at everything that's wrong, we just look at what's right.
That's right.
And as you look at everything that is considered right or acceptable, you see models. Now, those models have rules. Those models have definition. They're not just wanton. And so this is part of the problem, is that we see things through a lens and we don't even know the rules of engagement. We don't even know how it was even. We just see the pieces that we see and we bring judgments.
Yep.
This is very dangerous to do. So what we have to all understand in our acceptance of one another is that grace is horizontal, and that we need to be very gracious as we walk with our brethren, because what is working for you, what you were called to do, you're walking your line, may not be what your brother or your sister is called to. So this is very dicey, because you cannot make homogeneous rules. This is where religion fails badly, is we are too diverse. There's too much diversity, but the same ruah.
There's diversity, but there's diversity among the fivefold.
Yes, but the same ruah.
There's diversity in error. No, it's not just diversity. It's diversity in error, because there ain't a lot of good examples. So if people are looking for monogamous examples, Well, where's the wife? She's in the closet. Oh, wait, she's not involved in your calling. She's not involved in your vision.
Right.
And then we have the cheating example, and then we have the trading in the younger model for an older model, which is treachery, by the way.
Mhm.
Okay, and then in polygyny, there are more train wrecks than I can begin to tell you. There are a lot of train wrecks, and I've dealt with them. Okay, so so we're always talking about what the people are doing and what the people are doing. Let's talk about what the fivefold is doing, which is not a heck of a lot better. And so when people like Peter and myself come on here, we're doing our best to keep short accounts with Yahuwah, and we reason. We reason with our families, and we come to compromise or to conclusion within the boundaries of the word of Yahuwah. Listen, when I was doing monogamy,
All
Peter.
said.
Wait a second.
Well
When I was
said.
doing monogamy, there were not a lot of good examples for me. When I was doing the other, there were very few good examples. Heck, I'm not a great example. In other words, it's a broken institution. I don't care what anybody says. New heavens, new earth. I don't care what anybody says. The institution is broken. It broke down in the beginning. But with the Ruach, two hearts that are circumcised and reasoning together can make it work.
I
So we're
want to
trying
point
to.
something out about that. You made a great point. That's excellent. And it goes back to the beginning, right? So what was the higher calling beyond family? How come he didn't give Adam a job, a business? No business? Okay. No ministry? No. He
Yeah.
didn't give him any of that. He didn't send him a pastor? No. He sends him a naked woman. Says make a family.
Dance.
That's your highest calling.
Mamacita. Dance.
He sends you family, right? He incorporates you into a family with nothing between you. The word naked is meant to infer that there are no lies between you. There's no distance between you, that you are one. You are ahad. That's the point
Transparency.
of that. You're transparent, okay? So please get your mind in the correct place, people. Now, as you think about this, you realize, wow, that is so true. Because what is it that a couple have to do? They have to get transparent. And the faster they get there, the better that relationship will go. And remember that forever has to be the dividing the uniting component, because covenant was the original design. So covenant is always forever. Okay. And so that was the original design, was forever. And that's what you see. Now we have, as you said, and I love the way you put this, since when did 10 years mean you were faithful? No, faithful, 10 years is a good down payment. It's like I used to joke with Mindy. I say, check with me in a couple decades. We'll see how I feel. I'll give you an update in a decade. Let's check in a decade. That's just a check-in point.
Yeah.
That's not your entire relationship. Right? You're just warming up. You're just getting to the good stuff. You're just getting to know each other. Okay. And then that's not to say you can't have a wonderful relationship right away. But the point is that this is a journey that you go on. And that was always the design. It wasn't a secondary thought. It wasn't, go get a job, be successful, and then we'll add a wife to you. No, the wife became integral to the accomplishment of the mission of the man. So this was the mission. This is the high calling. Go ahead.
Correct. So in other words, we had to learn this early in our marriage, and a lot of marriages need to learn this, especially with the career woman, right?
Yes.
So if the woman is pursuing her career and Yahuwah has a career from Yahuwah, and the man has a career from Yahuwah, whether it's to be a provider, whether it's to have an electrical company, whether it's to teach the children in Shabbat school, whatever the calling is, she has the freedom to pursue a calling, but at some point, her calling and her husband's calling have to kiss and to meet, whether it's 50% of the time, 40%. That's all negotiable. But she cannot be out there getting her doctorate, ignoring her husband, ignoring her children. He can't do the same thing because he's got to lead her and nurture her and admonish her and lead by example. So you can't have two ships going in two different directions, which I may also add, which many of our couples may not have thought of, is how you allocate it and how you administer the 24 hours that Yahuwah has given you. For instance,
I'll go even further.
Well, let me finish my thought. For instance, if the husband or the wife sleeps all day and is up all night, and the other part of the marriage is up all day and sleeps all night. Well, how are you going to work together? And
Mhm.
if nobody changes in 30 years, you guys got some serious holes in your marriage. So something as simple as and mundane as a schedule. In other words, being married, it is incumbent upon you to coordinate your schedule so that they're not two ships that pass every blue moon, but the two ships have to pass several times a day to connect, reconnect, stay connect, whatever term you want to use. So I've seen that little things that we don't think about. So the husband's up all night, and then works during the day, and the opposite. The wife works um, all day, and she sleeps at night. And guess when they meet? Sunday morning. Might as well go to church. If you guys can't get your schedules to the point where you're spending some time together, and the only time you see each other is Sunday morning, might as well go to church. Now you know I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but
Mhm.
you get my point.
Well, there's a couple factors that you're bringing up here that many people may not take into consideration. A couple things. One, that you just mentioned a disqualifier, so I'm going to go a little more intense than you did. You were nicer about it. I wouldn't be. I would say sit down, because if you have no unity in your marriage, you have no business touching the body of Mashiach, and that's point blank and very clear. Any man who does not handle his business at home has no business handling the king's business in the public.
That's true.
The end.
That's true.
Straight
But
up.
but sometimes
Now,
handling your
yeah,
business
well, I don't care.
requires
I'm just going to tell you how it is. And I'll
confrontation.
tell you my standard, and you guys can all decide how you want to
You're right.
conduct yourself.
You're right. It requires a
I can only
confrontation.
tell you what I do. If we have strife and we have division, we have a saying, Shalom is our top priority, and we don't deviate from that. So does that mean Mindy might not have an issue? Are you kidding? She's a Libra. Get over. She's a lawyer. If there's somebody that'll find something to tell you about, it would be Mindy. And so you want to talk about a challenge, right? It's not easy to get into unity with somebody that might find flaws in the things you're talking about. You're either going to get really good or you're going to get aggressive. Well, I'm not aggressive. So what I have to be I have to be on my game, right? I have to be a leader worthy of that woman. And she's pushing me. She's like, you better bring it. You better show me the receipts, right? So that I can be convinced that you're going in the right direction. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And I believe that it's the pre-ministry testing process that Yahuwah put right there living with you. Now, before you go preach, come over here. We're going to talk about what's proper.
For sure.
Proper T. We're going to talk about what's proper, right? And so if you've disqualified yourself because you got strife, you got no business driving to that pulpit. I've been late 2 meetings in my past. Yes, I have. Because if I find there's division, I will shut it down. The meeting starts when I show up. And if I'm showing up 15 minutes late, believe me, you didn't want me 15 minutes before.
I've done the same thing. But part of
pull the car over and we will stop until we get to unity.
Part of a healthy marriage, part of a healthy priesthood, when there's a conflict like that, where you have, just as an example, where two ships pass in the night, for whatever reason, they don't make time for each other.
Right.
As the priest of the home, the husband, who, let's assume the husband has a call on his life.
Mm-hmm.
You're going, as much as
every husband has a call on his life.
As much as all of us want shalom. You're right about that. As much as all of us want shalom, there comes a time when part of the reasoning is confrontation. It's like, look, this has to change. We got to come together in one accord, because the word says if a man does not have his house in reasonable order, okay, we're not expecting this to be the house of the rising sun, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Reasonable order. In other words, your wife doesn't talk back to you in public.
Right.
You don't see each other 1 hour a week, and you make sure your schedule is busy so you don't have to deal with each other. Okay.
That's right.
The priest may have to sit his wife Toches down and say, listen, I ain't giving up this ministry. I ain't giving up the calling. I'm not giving up the honor that Yahuwah has given me, and neither are you. Now, you're going to get your tail in order. Now, I don't like that confrontation. You don't like that, but it is part, as you said, Every husband that's a calling. So we got to be tender. We got to be tender and kind hearted 98% of the time. But you got to prepare for resolution. And sometimes it requires confrontation. And nobody likes conflict because nobody likes strokes. Nobody likes high blood pressure. Okay. Nobody likes that. All right. So,
But
have to,
what does he say? What did Yahuwah say? He says in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 18, come, let us read, though your sins be as scarlet, right? Come, let us reason together.
reason.
Sins be as scarlet, right? So he himself is setting the example. So as a son, I have to do this. I have to say, okay, Father says, come, let us reason together. So even though I might not agree with what you're doing or the direction you're going or the thought process you're walking through, right?
Yeah.
My task is not to yell at you, although,
Right.
sometimes that happens and we don't want that. My task is not to lecture you, which is another thing. Okay. So we don't lecture because the lecture is one person talking, the other person sitting there. That's not good. What we want is, and I'm not a parent, right? So I'm not trying to be anybody's parent. Neither should somebody be parented, right? In a marriage. So what you're trying to do is reason together. And when you get that notion in your mind, you walk to the same side of the table. It's the difference between the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the right and wrong debate. Anytime you get into a right and wrong debate, kill it quick. Okay, I'm just telling you right now, just advice. Kill it quick, move to wisdom fast.
Yeah.
As soon as you do, you're both on the same side of the table.
Look for solution.
You always want to eliminate any right-wrong discussions.
Right.
It is never about, it's just advice.
I don't allow it. I don't allow it. I try to settle arguments within the home by saying, okay, let's assume you're right and I'm wrong. Now can we look for compromise?
Because,
and by the way,
then the person stops arguing their point and starts talking about, well, what would be wise, and it changes the entire, guys, I'm telling you,
correct.
it is one of the greatest revelations we've ever had. Just embrace wisdom and you will kill arguments dead on arrival as soon as you do this. I'm just giving
disarm the whole thing.
You disarm it. And the person who's hot, let's say my wife's is hot about something. She gets hot about things. Sometimes people get her upset, or maybe I got upset, right? And how do you bring that down? Let me give you one really strong piece of advice. Everybody listening to me, here it is. Lack of validation equals anger. The end. No, there's no exceptions to this. There are no other ways to look at it. You can debate it. Go meditate for a while. When you come back, let me know if there's any exceptions to no validation equaling anger. Okay, or validation on the positive side equaling happiness or a calm. It's an anti-frustration device. When you do not validate, you are guaranteeing an argument. Guaranteed. Just guarantee it. But if you validate, doesn't mean it'll always be the most pleasant conversation. However, you will bring it off the top. You will bring it down. Just start to validate. Now, what a lot of times people do is they'll hang on to the one little thing in the corner of the piece of paper that they don't agree with, right? And they're like, no, I don't agree with this. And they forget the 99% they do agree with, right? So validate the parts you do agree with and validate what is good. And you will find the momentum of that then hits the disagreeing part like a wave, okay? Whereas if you start off with only that point, you have no momentum. Just saying, just a piece of advice.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Look, the compromise in politics is the nature of the beast. Politics, compromise in other areas of Greco-Roman society, or even Torah jurisprudence.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes is required. But compromise in marriage is a nobility, provided the two of you are in Amos 3:3 covenant, and you've decided to come into agreement before you started walking together. Compromise is part of the reasoning process, not compromising your values or not compromising the word of Yahuwah, but compromising the terms that the two of you operate under. In other words, the two of you have a set of a genre of terms and borders and guidelines and likes and dislikes that are not found in the Torah, that are within the liberty of the Amos 3:3 covenant. And compromise is a very, very crucial tool. Now, doesn't it, not compromising kedusha, holiness. No, compromising the terms, the oral Torah that the two of you use to get along, because you're basically using an oral Torah within marriage.
That's a great way to put it. There's an administration, and just as each high priest had a flavor to his administration because he had room within the rules. So his policies, which is what you're describing, which don't reach the same level as Torah, obviously, but they are important to the operation of Torah.
House
And
rule.
they're the rules of the house, right? They're the administrative policies. And these have to be customized to each couple or to each administration, if you want to put it like that.
That's key.
Because if you don't modify and adjust to one another, what you're essentially saying is your differences, your uniqueness isn't important. I'm just going to slap on universal things as opposed to let's nuance this to you.
Or my view is more important than saving our marriage.
Right.
My view is more important than saving our marriage. My view is more important. Well, we used to have these house rules, and you agreed to these house rules, Peter. You agreed to these house rules 40 years ago. And I'll be darned after putting up with you for 20 years if I'm going to let you change the house rules. Well, you're dead in the water. You're dead in the water. You got to sit down again and make house rules that if you that are.
She's right, by the way. You can't do that. That's terrible administration. She's right. You can't just change the rule.
Well, but life doesn't work that way now, does it? Because
I mean, not unless you come together and agree, right? And
but circumstances change.
Well, that's true. That is true.
So what I'm saying to you is that every marriage has their house rules. Now,
right.
But what worked 15, give me an example. What worked 15 years ago when the children were in the house, right? Because you weren't there. You had to take them to school. You had to take them to school. You had to make their lunch.
Different house.
You weren't there to minister to each other the way you are now. Now you're an empty nester. You're still going to go by the rules and the schedule that you used when you would have an excuse to avoid each other and see each other for half an hour, and you blamed it on the kids and their lunch and their little league. Wait a second, and their little league and their dance studio. See, you had an excuse to avoid each other, but now you're empty nesters. Okay, so you're going to tell me the house rules don't need to change? Yeah.
They do need to change. They need to change. You're absolutely right. But I also agree with the notion that, hey, wait a minute, I could never do this, and now you're changing the rules, right? So there's good discussion there. However, you can see just by my reaction that I would be jovial. It would be fun. We would laugh. We would come to a great place. We would do this in a very nice way. This is also very important that you set the tone, especially husbands. Again, wives can do this. They set the temperature, but men set the tone. And if you are lighthearted, if you are jovial, if you are willing to bring in humor and bring in softness, as opposed to, the power moves are always there. To me, it's like using authority and using power, if you will. That's always there as a choice. But it doesn't show anything. I love the policeman.
Right.
This is my thinking on it. I love the policeman that walks up and says, "Hi guys, how's it going?" and starts talking to people and seeing if he can work something out with everybody and get everything situated versus, coming in with the billy club, right? Who likes the cop that walks in and just starts swinging? Who? Nobody likes that guy. Okay. Authoritative thug. He's a jackboot. Nobody likes that guy.
Probably doesn't like himself if he lives like that.
Probably doesn't even like himself, right?
If he lives like that.
But the person that comes in and he calms the situation down and he talks and he's reasonable, everyone loves that guy. The peacemaker, the sons of Alua Hayam. And so are you often going to be called upon to be a peacemaker? Yeah, you are. And that's a role that you have to get really good at. And notice he said, Baruch are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of Alua Hayam. Does everybody read that, right? Did he say anything about the daughters of Alua Hayam being peacemakers? No. A lot of times daughters are troublemakers. We love you all, but boy, you guys have a lot of extra questions. And one more thing, I probably just got in trouble, but it's true. And so what do we have to be? We've got to be peacemakers. That means we got to listen to your concerns, listen to your issues, resolve them with intelligence and wisdom, such that when we get done, you admire us.
Correct. And the thing, the
You
marriages,
respect us for
the
it.
marriages that fail, okay, I don't care. I don't care what the situation is, and I don't care who disagrees with me. I have the experience of life and also counseling. They are not willing. They are not willing to change. Not the Torah, not
Mhm.
the Brit Hadashah,
Right.
not the commitment, because the commitment comes from here. The
Right.
commitment doesn't come from a piece of paper, a
That's right.
governmental piece of paper. So if they're not willing to change, there is no marriage that can be married for 60, 70 years without the two of them having to compromise, reason, and change. Because if you've got two people that are not willing to change, that is the end of the marriage. I don't care
Yep.
how much sex there is. I don't
Nope.
care how much love there is. If you've got two hardheads and say we've always done it this way, yeah, but the kids are out of the house. Yeah, but now I have a lot of time and I can't avoid you anymore. So we're stuck.
Yep.
Circumstances change. What's this nonsense that because you took vows 100 years ago that nothing can change? Life changes.
No, the
And a
policy
smart leader,
definitely,
a smart leader
definitely
will lovingly guide his wife. I'm gonna say
yes.
that slow, very slow. A spiritual leader will lovingly guide his wife in the home through that change that by necessity the ruach is demanding and divine government is calling for. With
Couple of
patience, love, patience, love, forbearance. But the couple, I'll put it to a 15th way. The couple that stays the same as they were
yes.
40 years ago is not going to make it. The definition of marriage is you must change as the Ruach changes your scenery, your
So you're
background.
saying it's like a wineskin.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So you're saying it's like the original wineskin.
How about the vineyard?
How
Isaiah
about
chapter
Ecclesia
5.
is the original, or your family is the original Ecclesia?
How about the vineyard? My beloved had a vineyard. The vineyard didn't want to change into the new covenant, and so they got rid of themselves. He didn't have to get rid of them.
Couple things. One, proper. The wife is going to deal with that which is proper, which means she, by definition, so for this, my sisters that might have got upset at me, hear me out. Hear me out. Don't get too mad at me. By definition, she is a disturbance. That's what she is. That's why she was sent. She was sent to disturb, because Adam wasn't doing what Adam was. Adam alone was not good. That's what Yahuwah said. So he sent disturbance. He sent that conversation. He sent that discussion. He sent it.
Said, naked woman.
All right. He sent it. And your job as the man was to walk with, train, instruct. What did Adam get in trouble for? Because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife. You were supposed to be the trainer. Instead, you're listening to the disciple. I'm your trainer. Who's the head of every man? You're not supposed to be listening to anybody else. So Yahuwah trains his, right? So the head of every man is Mashiach. So Mashiach is training us how to be a good husband. It's right there. It doesn't go away.
And like you said yesterday, and you said on Shabbat, every husband has to submit. So the ladies who say, well, Bubba, you want me to submit to you, but who are you?
Every man submits
by definition of your extension cord, which is your private part, if you're a Kadosh man, you have to submit to Messiah. So ladies, Yahuwah knows how to take care of your husband if he's in error. You don't have to rub it into where he bleeds.
You don't. And so getting back to this ministry that has this disruption, this disruption is there. The woman is bringing a disruption, and it's her job to bring that disruption, and you have to resolve it. That's your challenge. Otherwise, hear me out. Why you should sit down. Here's why you should sit down. If you don't resolve it, your prayers are hindered, which
Yeah.
means you can't pray for anybody else either.
Yeah.
You're out. Sit
You're right.
until you resolve. Your wife does have the power to park your ministry. I hate to break it to you guys, but she does. She has the power to park your ministry.
Yep. That's why we keep talking things out and not letting them, because it's never a good time for confrontation. When's the
That's
best
right.
time when's the best time to have a big confrontation or discussion, as you say? When is the best time to die and leave your wife a widow and children? When's the best time to die and leave your wife a widow? Never. So some things in life are never a good time, but a good marriage, and I'm working on it. I'm not a marriage expert, but I do have a lot of experience. We will we have to change together. I'm not going to get rid of you if we don't change. You're not going to get rid of me if I don't change. We are going to go into the next chapter of our life together, but we're going to keep meeting. We're going to keep Isaiah 118 without threats. Without threats. You did, you promised, you did, you never, you did, no. We're going. Yesterday is in the tomb, and
Mhm.
tomorrow is in the womb. And we're not going to do just marital solutions on the tomb. We're going to do it based on the next chapter in our lives going forward. Not if we can go forward, but how we go forward.
That's exactly correct. It has to be constantly, perpetually updated, just like driving. You don't just get in the driver's seat and point it and then take your hands off the wheel. You're constantly adjusting, constantly, because the road is slightly not perfect, right? So you have to always be adjusting the driving. In the same way, there's never a time that you're not adjusting, whether it be circumstances, financial, political, societal, geopolitical, it could be anything. That's constantly creating adjustment. But then within the relationships themselves, one of the problems that we have is that we allow too many voices into our lives. One thing Mindy and I are very, very good at, and you'll see us do this, is we will boundary you up. We will not allow people to speak into
Say
our
that
marriage.
again. Say that again,
Okay?
because there's about 100,000 people who should be watching that need to hear that. Say that again.
We do not allow people to speak into our marriage. And the reason why is because they don't know our mission or our purpose. And fivefold, by the way, should only counsel with fivefold in that sense. Because if you're not fivefold, you do not understand the throes, the battles, the difficulties. So you'll apply layman thinking and layman marriage thinking to a high test, special forces type of situation. So you can't do that. And it's a disaster. It would be
I'm gonna
disaster.
I'm gonna go further than Peter. If your marriage is struggling, which I would assume 99% are, or you wouldn't be human, or 98%, but you're still married. Um, if you listen to too many voices, what should I do? What should I do? How should I do it? You're bound to make the situation even worse.
A lot worse.
If you're a lay person, go to 2 or 3 trusted fivefold. Or better that, I challenge anybody. I challenge myself. I challenge my wife. Ready? If there's an issue and you've been hacking it out for 6 months and you still can't come to a resolution, summon the elders at the gates. Say, humble yourself
Amen.
and say, Apostle Peter, can you, Moshe, and a couple of other elders meet us in Zoom? We think that if we bring our differences to you, we can iron things out.
Yes. And by the way, you guys are high calling.
But learn to stop listening to your friends who have never done marriage. And if they've done it, they haven't done it right. And if they have done it right, it's by the miracle and grace of Yahuwah. It's
Worse
not by
yet.
So Peter is. I'm going to go further than Peter did. If you listen to voices, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm going to come clean here. When we were growing up, Rivka and I, in the past, we struggled a little bit. There were some times we struggled, and my daughter, who was like 9, 10, 11. See if you could identify with this, Peter. My daughter, who was completely worldly at that time, completely living in the world at that time, was actually giving counsel to my wife what to do with her husband. She was 8 years old. I want you to get a whiff of this. I want you to get a whiff of this. And when you're hurting, and at that time Rivka was hurting, guess what? You're gonna listen. That's my baby, and my baby's looking out for me. You
Mhm.
might as well take a pen and write Ichabod, and then after you write Ichabod, write Meta, death. If your daughter or your son, who's 7 years old or 10 years old, mom, leave the bum, and you're based on Torah, you're based on Yehusha, you don't want to end the marriage, and you're listening to your son or your daughter? Are you serious? And they're like not even teenagers yet? You don't think that happens a lot? When you're
Well,
hurting, you listen. When you're hurting, you listen to stuff you shouldn't be listening to.
we seek validation. What I just tell you, I said validation or lack of validation equals anger 100% of the time. How often? Listen up, gentlemen. You hearing me back there? Drive through a stop sign one more time. See what happens. You're going to keep getting flagged for those. Stop, acknowledge what she said. Women, they stop, acknowledge what he said,
Correct.
validate one another. You're going to kill all of those problems instantly. Validation is everything. It doesn't mean
Right.
you agree with every point
Right.
or every notion that went through someone's head. It just says, hey, you're not cuckoo. Your point is valid. I need to think about that. Or you might be right about something, or you might be wrong, but you got good nuance. In other words, you're not completely crazy.
I'll give you an example. You're in the middle of an argument, right? A
Mhm.
marital argument. And you say,
Mhm.
listen, before we get into the specifics or regarding your point, you tell your wife or your husband, regarding your point, I can't do this without you. I can't live without you. I can't run this house without you. I can't be the man that I need to be without you. So
That's right.
let's establish that right away. The purpose of this heated discussion is to find a solution. It's not for you
That's
to get rid of
wisdom
me.
right there.
It's not
That's
for
wisdom.
you. It's not for you to get rid of me to get rid of you. Sleep in separate houses. No. Okay, I cannot do this without you. I'm not trying to minimize you. I'm not trying to.
What are you
To
doing right there? You're validating.
you're valid.
You're describing a validation process that
Correct.
you use.
You can
You're
fight fair.
validating them.
You can fight fair with validation, but you cannot
Right.
fight fair. You cannot fight fair without validation. And
You
I've been
cannot.
I've been teaching couples for over 40 years based on experience.
So now you got
listen,
70 years here
listen to
telling you
this.
the same thing.
Listen to this. Listen to this. I want all my couples to fight. If you come to my office and you're having issues, I want you to fight. Why? Why? Because you're already fighting, but you're not fighting fair. You're not
Right, so I
fighting
can
fair.
see it.
You're fighting about something that happened 18 years ago that you have no power to change.
Right.
You want to fight fair? What did my husband do to me this morning? What did my wife do to me this morning? Not 18 days ago. That's not fighting fair.
Come on.
And once a couple learns how to fight fair, they're on their way because the validation is part of that fighting fair. See?
That's
The
right.
validation.
By the way, I want to go back to something. Yes, in keeping short accounts, something you say a lot, which I completely agree with. You want to have a happy marriage, short accounts. You get, the sun doesn't go down on your wrath. You make sure you take care of it.
Do your best.
Also,
Do your
something about friends. Just a quick note to go back and grab something that I wanted to dovetail in, because some of you have very dangerous friends. I'm talking about toxic enemies of your marriage, and especially if they predated your marriage. Okay. So many times people try to hang on to a friendship relationship after they change their status. Listen, you're not only did you change status when you went from single to married, so did your friend. Your friend went from friend to a single person to friend to a married person. And if that friend doesn't make the same transition you made, you're going to have to lose that friend.
Yeah.
Because friends that are not able to make the transition from friend of a single person to friend of a married person will break you up because they miss the friendship.
Yes.
So
They
they
will
will
fight
actually
for your
work
friendship.
against your marriage, subtly undermining it, okay? Looking for flaw, looking for any error to magnify because they want their friend back. They want to go back to my friend is a single friend. I like the dynamic we have here. We have a new dynamic now where I can't come over whenever I want to. I've got to call first. You guys have other plans that don't involve me. We used to do everything together. Now you're doing it with your husband or your wife. Okay. Right. And this happens a lot with girlfriends. I mean, not as much with guys, although it can happen with guys. It tends to happen. In my experience, and again, I may have just been skewed, so forgive me, guys, but I've seen it a lot with women who hold on to friendships and relationships that they think have value and not recognize they need new boundaries. Okay. Just like guys that were hitting on you before you got married, and then you get married, you got to let those guys know that you're not even interested anymore, and you got to shut it down. It's kind of the same thing with friends and other voices in your life when you now are in a committed, or you're recommitting yourself to your marriage. So maybe you're 15 years in and you're like, nope, we're going to fix this. You got to have to shut some voices down.
That's very true. That is so true. It's funny, and it's true, and it's sad. It's all of the above. That's right. You have, because nothing, when you're married, it's not going to be the same. You may still be their friends, but it's not going to be the same. But here's what I want to just a little shift. Here's another pet peeve of mine, and pet peeves can help people. I have found that the believers are very carnal, and I don't mean believers in general, and I don't mean in a sexual way. You can have all the sex you want, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's in covenant. But they're very carnal in a different way, and I think you're gonna co-sign this. Ready?
Yeah.
They will talk about the rapture for 100,000 hours. They'll talk about how to keep Shabbat for 50,000 hours. They will talk about how to slaughter the lamb for 20,000 hours.
Okay.
But preacher, I ain't interested in you coming into my bedroom and telling me how to interact with my husband and how to interact with mind your own damn business. And that's why when you look at the numbers of this broadcast, you'll find that exactly the same. If we were here sitting about how to prepare for Shavuot, or how, there'd be a lot more. It's the carnality of the people that say, stay out of my love life, that's between me and my husband. And don't tell me, because you don't live in my shoes, I'm the only one that walks in my moccasins. I'm telling you, Peter, it's a mentality that stay out of my private life and stay out of my bedroom. Because preacher,
anytime I've ever commented,
let me finish. As long as I'm giving you, as long as I'm putting 10% in your slot machine, and I ask you questions about the second coming, 70 AD, you're fine. But I don't need you coming into my bedroom. I got enough problems. Okay? This is the carnality. This is the carnality that is so widespread that instead of people appreciating this kind of apostolic talk, you're going to get complaints. How come because they don't see the value in it. But Yahuwah will deal with those people. He'll deal with those people. Trust me. See, guys, we're being real to try to help you. We don't have to. We don't have to put our business and our experience on Front Street.
Well, as fivefold, that's not entirely true. We are called to be spectacles, and so unfortunately,
you know what I'm saying. We don't have to in the natural, but in the spirit,
right? Yeah, in the spirit, and we've accepted this obligation of our own free will to be examples, to shine our light, so that you do see us. And Mindy and I are well aware of that.
I don't mind shining my cracks, because people will say, "Oh, I'm not weird. I'm not incapable of doing marriage. If Sholiach has got some of these issues, I'm cool. Then Yahuwah loves me too." So I don't mind showing people the cracks. Part of being an example is not just showing them the light; it's showing them the cracks.
Right, and being real. And look, we don't. Sometimes you disagree. You don't have the same point of view. And does that mean you resort to brute force? Well, I'm the man, submit to me. No, submit means, listen carefully, sub means part of, and mit is a reduction of the word mission. So it's part of a mission. If you can't explain the mission, then why in the world should that person be on the mission? So your job as the man is to explain what it is that you're doing. And that takes reasoning. That takes time. It's casting vision. And that's the reason why you even got married. I mean, how did you even talk her into marrying you if you didn't cast the vision, right? So this is one of the things that I think is foundational and fundamental. I don't know how although Mindy and I got married knowing full well what we were going to go what we were called to do. Like it wasn't a secondary thing. Like, oh, by the way, I'm called to the work. Like, no, she was out looking for me, going, I know who he is, and I know he's called to do this.
Let me caveat with the submission business. What you said is true. When you say women submit and shut up, forget it, Bubba. Okay, you're not representing his heart, his ministry.
Nope.
And not to mention it's not going to work. But let me just sidetrack and piggyback on what you said. However, I'll tell you where women submit, and I mean it, plays. Let me tell you where it comes in. We need to talk. We need to reason together. And when we've talked about this before, I'm tired. I have to cook. The Moadim, sit down and let's reason this thing out and let's make Yahuwah proud. Now be quiet and sit down. That's the kind of submission, because the submission, if you don't sit down, you're not going to get remedy. But the brute, I'm the man, you're the woman, submit, that don't work. But
that don't work.
If the woman's not willing to sit down and reason together, I will pull the submission card. Heck yeah.
I'll take it one step further.
Heck yeah. I'll pull the submission card. If she's not willing to sit down and talk things out and find solutions, yes, I will pull the submission card. Yes, I will.
Yeah, to get you to sit.
Right.
Just to get you to sit. No right. Other thing. No other reason.
Right.
But the respect element is critical. So one of the things that I believe that men have to do as part of your challenge of becoming a man, it's like a manhood test. When you get married, there's a person's respect you have to earn. There's a person's respect you've got to earn. And this person sleeps with you.
Yep.
And sees your flaws.
Yep.
And sees all the things that you don't do exactly right. And somehow you still have to earn that person's respect. That's a challenge, Jack. Because everybody else gets to see you all put together. Everybody else gets to see you all, your hair combed. You look amazing. You have your poop in a group. You know what I mean?
Shabbat best on. You got your Shabbat best on.
Okay. She's getting to see you putting it together. She gets to see you behind the scenes. She sees you flaws and all. And you have to gain that person's respect. Oh my goodness.
Through validation. Listen, Peter, see if you can relate to this. You're about to go out in public. You're about to go do something. And honey, you're not going to go out in that shirt, are you? Yeah, but I don't want to change. I'm comfortable. I've been looking forward to wearing this. No, I'm not going out there with you like that. You ever hear that one?
Yep. That's the wife's job. My wife's job is to do things proper. She's in charge of property.
How many times I got to change my shirt before I go on camera?
Listen, Mindy is the best. I'll tell you. I'll just talk praises about my wife. You guys want to do that for a minute? Her job is to get me to a spot. She knows, put him there, put a quarter in him. That's all he needs. Just make sure he gets to the right spot. So that's what she does. Get the shirts ready, get everything he needs, park them.
man.
And it's that's wifing, man. That's the kind of, she is my wife. She is not just some woman in my life. You know what I'm saying? She knows how to wife me. And that is saying something, because not every woman understands that. And that's why not all of them can be.
That's wife you, not Wi-Fi you. You got that, guys? Wife you, not Wi-Fi you. Okay,
not Wi-Fi.
I want to clarify that.
No, she gives good wife. Let me tell you, Mindy understands and understood going in from day one that her role was to be to support and strengthen the call, the purpose. That's why she didn't want to marry a trivial man. She wanted to marry. She didn't know quite what she was getting into, but
that's what I tell my wives all the time. In humility, I say, you realize it's an honor. I mean, it's an honor for Yahoo for Yahuwah to bless me with you, but you also realize being married to a prophet or an apostle is an honor too. And my wife, yes, you're right. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I always like to remind them of that also. I just
There are times when you pull rank, right? And so you're like, look,
Yeah.
this is who I am. You can't become disrespectful, or father will step in.
yes.
So whenever we're dealing with, for example, disrespect, we're dealing with words that maybe weren't well put, right? This is where you have to be gracious. And what does the king say? Don't listen too closely to your servants. You might hear them say things. I think he keeps his own advice, right? So he's going to come when I call him, but you be careful because he hears everything. He's just trying not to react to you, all right, to give you a chance to work your stuff out. He's giving you grace, right? Space to repent. And that grace is horizontal again, folks. It's meant for us to take the time to get along with one another.
Now when you finish, I'm gonna let you finish because
Well, let me just finish this one point
you're
because
on the broadcast, and then I want to ask you.
out.
And then, no, you can take as long as you want, but then I'm going to ask you the question of all questions.
All right. So
Okay.
this element of grace, and I'm still unpacking. I'll probably take weeks to unpack this. That we've misunderstood in churchianity as vertical only, and what we've misunderstood is how important the horizontal part of this is, and the fact that grace he's talking about almost always is talking about grace for you and your brethren, how you are gracious to your brethren. So when we get into that right-wrong mentality where we keep a list of wrongs, and all of us can do this, we can accumulate. That's why you love new relationships. There's no list. Old relationships, oh my gosh, there's all these things this person did. That's not love. You're not supposed to keep a record of wrongs. So bottom line is that in order to get that respect, you've got to be a person of principle who keeps your own word. So if you have a rule, you've got to keep it. What does that do? It creates character in you. You're now being held accountable by somebody sitting right there, and you are going to become a better man as a result.
That segues right into what I was going to ask you. But don't answer right away, because this thing may require meditation.
Okay.
It may require prayer. Okay. So I'm not just talking about plural, but it would apply more to plural. Okay.
Okay.
So, but it could also apply to monogamy. A couple takes a vow. Their vows before Yahweh. Now I know, knowing you might bring in the false altar, the true altar, but let's put that.
Let's assume it's correct.
Let's put that aside.
Yeah, let's assume it's correct.
Take a vow, but like Yahuwah in Jeremiah 31, one of the parties broke the terms or wants the terms to be renegotiated. What did Yahuwah do? Did he throw Israel to the curb and say, go eat the gutter? No. He made a new covenant. He said, even though I was a husband to them, I redid the terms in order to keep her and remake her as my bride. So here's to me the question of all questions, especially when it applies to plural, right? And this is not a trap question, but it may require some thinking. So if the husband wants to redo the vows, but she's not willing, he's bound by his word. However, we have the example in Scripture of Yahuwah tearing up the covenant because it was not working and making a new covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So is the couple bound by the vows that they made together 10 years ago, 9 years ago? Or in order to save a relationship, should a discussion ensue which allows for a new covenant and a reasoning process?
Let me ask you a question, all of you. Why would somebody get baptized again? That answers your question.
No, I need more than that. All right.
Same reason. Well, I'll unpack it, but there it is. There's my summation.
Talk to me.
Now, we get in the water again because as part of our process on earth, we get soiled. We get challenged, and we need rededication. Doesn't mean you didn't do it right the first time. It just means you need to do it again because we need to periodically reconnect ourselves. What's the point of a memorial? Why do we build a memorial? What's the point? Why does he command us to build memorials? So that we remember things, right? Does it mean that we have to stay in the same spot that they were at when they built the memorial? No, it's called a memorial to remember so that it gets added to the context window of the present. In other words, you're dealing with new things here, but don't forget these things too, right? All right. that being said, why is it that there may need to be renewal of vows or a renewed covenant, a new covenant? Because of the very thing that Sholiak just pointed out. Not only did he example that for us, but you biologically are not the same person you were 7 years ago. Every cell in your body has been renewed in 7 years. Every cell. You are not even physically the same person that you were 7 years
Not
ago.
to mention your mind and your
Not to mention the
understanding.
development. And so to take for
Scripture.
granted, which is a massive mistake. Well, I told you I loved you 15 years ago. Why do I got to say it again? That logic. To take for granted that you are staying connected is a massive foolishness. Instead, I believe that you need to renew that vow. Now, I would say it gets renewed in many other ways than just a ceremony. But I also believe that those are important as well. So
Okay,
if
let me
you feel that
make,
need, if you're feeling like, hey, my marriage is waning, we need to do a rededication, you're right.
let me
The end.
zero it in more a little bit more. And I receive what you're saying, and I think I hear what you're saying, but I want to clarify it for a lot of people. So in the plural lifestyle, you know the state vows that we take before the state, right? It goes something like this: forsaking all others.
Right.
You hear me? You hear me? Almost in every one of those pastoral handbooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those cookie cutter ceremonies. Honey, I love you till death do us part, forsaking all others. Now, then the calling of Yahuwah comes for a
What's
man.
wrong with that?
For a man to expand his family. There's a widow, there's a single woman who needs a covering. She's ready to go from, like you said the other day, from the covering of the assembly to an eligible Torah keeping, honest, upright man. By definition, can a new covenant be made through reason, or is the man bound to the point where he cannot cover another woman 20 years later, as you just mentioned, where circumstances have changed drastically? Now Yahuwah is telling a man, no, it's more important that you cover her, but in the process, validate your wife. Let her understand that she's not being kicked to the curb. See, so
Couple things here. And it doesn't matter whether it's poly or monogamous, makes no difference. So I got a couple of points to make. Let me know when you're done, because I think you're not only over the target, but I think you don't understand. I don't think you fully realize. Maybe you do.
I am done. I'm sorry.
How much you've unpacked. The fact is Messiah is the gatekeeper, right? He's the doorkeeper. So do you get access to Messiah's people without going through him? No. Do you get access to a family to be considered part of that family without going through the husband? No. So there's no relationship between sisters, if you will, that doesn't first go through him, right? So he's the gatekeeper. Now, so the element of the vows makes no difference. This is the part that people get confused on, where it says forsaking all others. That's exactly correct. When that woman, I don't care if she's the fifth, she still has to forsake all others, because that's the focal point that she now has. She has a new gatekeeper, and that's the cover, and she has to forsake all others. That's got nothing to do with the other people that may also be covered. That's no different than saying
that doesn't apply to him. Are you saying that?
Let me finish, and you'll get my point. So, in an assembly is the exact same way, not sort of, the exact same way. How can we be father to the fatherless if we aren't the same? So the fact is that we have many children, right? So I could get 1,000 single women that join Remnant House. They're all covered under that. They're all part of a covenant if they remain. That is the key. The key is, how serious was it for them? I remain who I am. You're the one that has to make the commitment or the covenant, just like Ruth had to say, your people are my people, right? You've got to make that. How did Rahab come in? Same thing. She had to say, your Eloah Hayam will be my Eloah Hayam, right? I'm going to call upon the name of Yahuwah. So that is a grafting in that adds to the assembly or the gathering of the family, which is what Mashiach was preaching. This is my brother, my sister, my mother. So he wasn't preaching an organization. He was preaching a family that comes together. There's various ways for covenant to work in a family. Okay. But the point is that they're now committed and no other. So they're not church hopping. They're not marriage hopping. They're not relationship hopping. They're settled, established, and perfected. That was my point.
But I still didn't get the question answered, not the way I wanted it, but so I had clarity. It's not that you didn't answer.
Wasn't I didn't quite focus on your question. It was a point that I saw in you were making. So re-ask your question. So
I'm gonna re-ask it because there may be monogamous. Okay, let's assume there's a monogamous couple. They've been married 30 years.
Yes.
He's being called to take a second wife, cover, raise her children.
Who is telling him to do that? Right. Got it.
Who's telling him to do that? However, there's a piece of paper in the closet issued by Julius Caesar or even by whatever, just altar or whatever.
Right.
And it says, the husband said, on that marriage day, the husband said, forsaking all others. And the wife said, forsaking all others. I'd like that addressed. And now, if Yahuwah apparently, let's assume he's hearing from Yahuwah, is calling him to extend his family to a single woman and to provide for her and her children. But there's a big fight. There's a big explosion because she pulls out the paper and says, sorry, Bubba, you told me forsaking all others and you're breaking the covenant. Wait.
Well, first of all, you do have a problem because she has to be on board. So you can't do this.
Assuming she could be on board through reasoning, but I'm not talking about that. In other words, it's the paper where it says forsaking all others is an obstacle to a different season.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so he cannot
explain it, but it's forsaking all others is specific language, right? Okay, so what if your wife comes to you and says, "I really think we need to add this woman to our family"? She's the one initiating it, not you. Watch this now, folks. Paying attention? You with me now? Okay, good. She does it and says, we need to add this. Is she forsaking you? No. She's not. Is she asking you to forsake her? No. An addition is neither a forsaking nor a removal. It's an addition. It doesn't diminish a member because we add another member. It doesn't diminish our family, nor does it diminish my commitment or my covenant with you. So that would be inferring that every new member somehow diminishes my commitment to Mindy, for example. Correct. Or to other members of our house.
And that's where affirmation comes in. Correct.
That's right. And so it's a nonsense thought that one could diminish the other. It just doesn't work that way. Here's the reality. The reality is it's an addition. Secondly, the wife can, if you already have a primary, you're married, I'm sorry, dude, you're not doing anything without her. You guys are one. Okay, so you're not adding.
In other words, if she is not in agreement, that is something that has to be reasoned out.
That's right, and it ain't happening. It ain't happening until it's reasoned out, and until there's an adding, not a instead of. Because as soon as you add instead of, you just created a problem.
No, but assuming there's no instead of, assuming that everybody is in one accord,
right,
and nobody's threatening to leave anybody else,
right.
It's just that the man is hearing from Yahuwah to add to his family.
Yeah, but that's a definition now. We're talking different. We're parsing words. What is forsaking? What did you forsake? Did you forsake anybody? No, you didn't. No, so therefore, that's nonsense. It didn't apply. You didn't forsake. You didn't dump her off and treat her treacherously. So you could go have the other one.
That's my question. In other words, not only let's say the monogamous man is being called in a different time of life to add another wife, right. And rather than getting rid of the first wife to add a second, she says, "Look, the paper says forsaking all others." His response is, "Forsaking you? I'm recommitting to you. I'm recommitting according to Exodus 21 verse 10, which says what? If a man takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food, her shelter, and her conjugal rights." Okay, so there's no diminishing. So my question is, when there's no diminishing or forsaking of the first wife, where does that leave the situation?
Couple things. One, this is not for everybody. So can I just say that real quick?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times people start feeling like, man, am I got to do this? No. Okay. This is
No.
very princely stuff. This is very, very high up stuff.
Apostolic stuff.
This is very, very high. Princes, people who are well established. Okay. To pull this off, you got to be something special. Okay. To pull this off. Not only culturally do you have to deal with a lot, but you've got to deal with a lot of things inside the relationship. But what you described when you described the situation where the man's having that conversation with his wife sounds like the beginning of a conversation, and sounds like he's getting revealed just how much husbanding work he's got to do, and just how much they aren't in agreement. And so that right there says, don't you dare bring anybody else into that mess. Fix the mess first. You got a giant mess. You got no business even talking about adding anything to that if you got that much disagreement and you have that much misunderstanding of purpose, mission. Oh no, you're not even close to.
But if the process is being discussed, if it's being discussed,
yeah, well, it's going to be a long discussion from what you described.
It's going to be a long. It could be a long discussion.
It's going to be a while because you got to bring. First of all, you got the cultural elements. Then you have to deal with the fact that how would you not feel threatened as a woman? Okay, if your husband, how would you not feel threatened? And security is huge to women. So you just hit their biggest hot button? Are you nuts? That's going to take some time, okay? And it better be led by her. It can't be. Look how did Abraham end up with Hagar? Sarah,
yeah.
Okay, Sarah. So you got to understand something, guys. This dynamic that if you've been given a wife, man, you've been given a good thing. You cherish that. You cherish that wife and you honor her and you respect her. And she becomes that woman that you've always wanted, right? That woman that you love and adore all the time. And it's 15 years in, 20 years in, you still can't stand being away from her. That means you're doing something right. Okay. Now, does it mean you can't add to that? If you're doing something right, then he might add to it because you're doing it right. Okay, so this is the reward. This is like,
wife,
I hate to say it like that, but it's like, why would you add? Oh, here's my question, because I'm thinking from a pastoral or father's perspective. Why would I want this beautiful young lady who is contemplating that choice versus a monogamous choice? She's contemplating this choice. Why would I want her to go into an unsettled, disheveled, disorganized, bad authority flow? I mean, you're sending her in to be tortured. You're sending her in to be abused.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's not Yahuwah's will. So I believe that, this is when you're talking about this topic,
there has to be shalom
on the topic that is extremely refined. We're talking about high pinnacle stuff. And he does not authorize that for everybody because it would be abusive.
But the bottom line is and let me make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. And first of all, there has to be shalom in the house. It can't be a war zone. There has to be shalom in the house. Number two, the paper that says forsaking all others in a new season, if Yahuwah is dealing with a man, is irrelevant because you're not forsaking any wife.
That's right. There's no forsaking going on, so that doesn't apply.
But when the paper says forsaking all others, wouldn't that preclude a second or a third wife?
No, because it's speaking in past tense. So it's saying that you have been chosen among all other options and all other choices, and she has forsaken all other choices to choose you. That's what that means.
Yeah, but he said to her,
chosen. She could have. I'm talking about. Let's just talk about the first wife. She could have chosen anything she wanted. She chose you. She stayed with you, forsaking all others. Right. So that was established at that point. She didn't know what would come after that. She could only deal with what had already happened. So she was forsaking every other option and every other choice and every other offer and saying, no, I'm accepting your offer. So that's that. Now, future tense, if you start saying, well, will you forsake or will there be a forsaking in the future? There shouldn't be, right? Because forever should be there. So if forever's there and you're both there, and at some point you decide that you're going to add, that's a together or forever discussion. So it should be just another discussion among many discussions that you had, and it was something you were led by the Ruach.
I think you're missing my point. My point is, if the man says to the woman, forsaking all others. Now what?
The man says to the woman, forsaking all others. Correct. I will not dump you for another. That's forsaking. Forsaking means leave you. I will never leave you or forsake you.
I want everybody to hear that. I want everybody to hear that, because that's the wisdom of an apostle talking. Say that again, so because I need to hear that.
Forsaking means leaving, and I will never leave you.
So when the man was in monogamy, and now he's being called to plural, and he looked the woman in the kishkis and said to her, forsaking all others. That doesn't mean that if Yahuwah changes the season, that he cannot add another wife as long as it doesn't become a war zone. She can't accuse him of breaking the covenant, because she can say, you said forsaking all others. So basically she's accusing him of breaking the covenant. So your judgment is she's wrong.
Incorrect thinking.
She's wrong.
It is incorrect thinking, because it's assuming that, for example, that Yahuwah cannot get someone else saved. He can only get you saved. What? Yeah, he can only have covenant with one. No, you can have covenant with her. Oh, okay. So your covenant with Yahuwah has no bearing on the covenant he has with somebody else. He's still the one that you're devoted to. Yep.
When did you
get
the only one
you're devoted to? Yep.
When did you get so smart? You're a smart dude. You are, man. When did you get so smart? I'm jealous. Is jealousy a fruit of the spirit? I don't think so.
Yahuwah gets jealous, so he says he's a jealous Alua Hayam. So
no, but getting back to your answer. So that okay. So I want everybody, man, women, babies. Okay. So if the man take honey bunch, I'm never going to set eyes on anybody but, and the woman says forsaking all others, claro. The man says forsaking all others, which means there'll never be another season, there'll never be another wife. And then that season comes, he's clearly hearing from Yahuwah, and she says, you are breaking your covenant because you looked me in the kishkis and you told me that you would forsake all the other hot chicks and I would be the only one. Your response to that? Again.
Okay. First of all, I really, really believe in the power of the Ruach. So in that situation, I would give it to Yahuwah. Because then next thing you know, my wife would come to me and say, and and I like that better. So that's number one. It's just me. I like him being the filter. He gets it done when I can't get it done. Secondly, again, you don't have agreement, so you got no business going forward anyway. Even if you could somehow talk her into going to another step, you still haven't resolved the issue. So you're nowhere near ready for that. And that's my point, guys, is that this is going to test your real unity. And maybe the notion, maybe some guy says, hey, I think that's a great idea. And that's when he finds out just how jacked his marriage is. Good. Maybe that's a perfect time for you to go back and renew.
But you said before, but you said before that just because he said to her, forsaking all others, you made the comment that, well, who is he forsaking? If he's growing his family, is he forsaking the fourth wife? Right. If all the wives are loved, treasured, cared for, admonished, what's the word you used before? Affirmed, right?
Yeah.
Affirmed. So you're saying he's not breaking his vow. She thinks he is, right? She thinks he is because her interpretation of forsaking all others is different. But the forsaking all others means if I replace you with a younger model, I've broken my covenant. But if I'm still going to treasure you as much as I ever have, I'm just exercising my freedom under the Ruach. Am I now understanding you correctly?
Yes, you are correct. That is correct. But that is very delicate.
I just needed to understand something on a very delicate subject. Mm-hmm. Correct. It's very delicate, and that's why I wanted to get an apostle's opinion. Because I can't just go to any Southern Baptist pastor and ask them this, because they'll tell me, it's like the idiots that tell the guy in Nigeria with 5 wives. They all love him. They're all enamored with him. They're all in covenant with him. None of them are mistreated. And then the Christian missionary goes to Nigeria and says, you're going to have to choose because the Bible says, the King James homosexual Bible says that you've committed adultery against your first wife, so you've got to go home and get rid of the 4 others. Can you imagine the stupidity of religion? And by the way, do you know that happens? Do you realize that happens?
I've seen a lot of things that I thought were crazy. Another thing I think is a little crazy I do want to address. I thank you for bringing that one up. I think it's nuts. We've beat that horse. Here's another one that we didn't do. You be careful with repackaging. When Mashiach met the woman at the well, he did not excuse her 5 previous husbands. He didn't pretend them away. He didn't remake her into something else. No, he called it out. He straight up called it out. And I see a lot of times what people do in their minds is they start reasoning in their minds that they can somehow rechange their state or their status. No, commitments and covenants matter, and you need to be really careful when making them. I remind you of the Gibeonites. Even though they were deceived into a covenant, nevertheless, Yahuwah held them accountable for the agreement that they made. So this notion that you can just sort of dismiss people from your past as if you never actually did anything or there was no consummation is nonsense. Mashiach didn't play that game.
No.
Okay. He looked at her and he said, "Where's your husband?" And she said, "I have no husband." She was trying to play a game, wasn't she? She was trying to wipe the slate. Like none of that happened. Grace, grace. Are you with me? And Mashiach doesn't play that game. He says, "No, you've had 5 husbands."
You've had 5. How about this one?
Well, let me help you out. I counted the first one. I counted the second one. I counted the third one and the fourth. And the one you got now ain't even your husband. So she took it as, "Oh, wow, he's reading my mail as prophetic." No, he's telling you something about how important marriage is to him. He kept track of everyone. Not only that, but that he did not pretend away the previous husbands for the present one. So sober up out there.
And polyandry is forbidden, of course.
Sober up out there, because the notion that you can just mentally wipe away 20 years of your life, okay, and then walk out and say, "I have oil put on my head, I'm born again," and now none of that actually happened. Mashiach didn't play that game, okay? And Mary got told to her face, "Go and sin no more, that lest the worst thing come upon thee." She had to change her life. So this notion that we could just do some mental assent Gnosticism and switch our status, I'm not even kidding. We're talking people that were, that are going to try and change, like they're thinking they can somehow change their status. That's not the case. And that's delusion.
So it's not the forsaking all others that would prevent another wife from entering the family. It is the fact that it is or is not a war zone. In other words,
yep. And the wife is the gatekeeper in that.
All the parties have to be in one accord.
Yep.
But if what's stopping them from being in one accord is a paper that says forsaking all others,
that's irrelevant. We can move past that piece of paper really easily.
But see, in my world, in the world of plural, this comes up all the time. So again, I don't mean to be. I don't mean to be repetitive, but you can't find this stuff anywhere else other than at the apostles at the gates. So I want everybody to hear what Peter's saying. If you have a covenant with your husband that says he will forsake all others, now he wants to add to his family to cover a widow and her children, and you're okay with it, but the only reason you would not be okay with it is because of the paper. Get in the spirit and forget the paper. Yes or no?
When the two get together, and like you talked about, having that compromise, having that discussion, and deciding, is this what we're going to do? And they do it together. A man does not add a wife without his wife. You cannot add a wife without your wife. Okay.
No.
In other words, if that's something you were going to do, and again, in America, not, it's highly unrecommended. If you really want to be committed to that lifestyle, you might want to change where you're living, but whatever. Or you're going to stand out as a spectacle. That's the other choice you have. But the fact is that if you're going to do that, it is family decision. Otherwise, you're forsaking that family. You are forsaking. The minute you choose another person, even before, without even discussing it with you're already forsaken, as far as I'm concerned.
So in other words, the first wife or the second wife should be talking to the prospective wife. In other words, there's no secret. No secrets.
Who's going to be in charge?
Correct. And that's exactly what happened in our relationship. Rivka and Mariamne were talking more than I was with mine.
That's right. Because if they aren't friends and if they aren't sisters, man, you got no hope. And so that's just, even if they're just going to work for you. I'm not even talking about marriage. Just work for you. Just be your secretary. Okay? And you're walking in a kadosh lifestyle. Oh no, you need a kadosh secretary because she's too close to your life. That's not even married. Not even married. And you better make sure that goes to your wife.
Exactly.
You better, and that's not even marriage.
Yep. Exactly. This has been an incredible time in the word, in discussion. And I want people to understand what they've heard in the past 90 minutes. I'm sorry if this sounds pompous, is not available because either they believe it's sinful or they have no answers or they're believing some kind of marriage that's Greco-Roman, that's not from the patriarchs or the Torah. And so our discussion today can really help a lot of people, provided, as you said, the people are reasonable. And so in a scenario that I presented where a piece of paper is holding you back, let's say there's 5 people in the family and all the wives want to take in a widow, take in her children, take in someone who needs a covering. But because of a piece of paper and the wife keeps focusing in on the paper that says forsaking all others, what Peter is saying and what I'm saying is, let the spirit that's moving in everybody's heart in unity be the deciding factor, not an ancient piece of papyrus.
Not only that, but maybe what's needed before you consider that extra step is the renewal of the vows of the first one, and a readdressing of that ketubah to ensure that we are in 100% agreement.
Yes,
and
affirmation.
Yes, affirm.
In other words, you hit on a key thing. You hit on a key thing. If you're going to do that, and like you said, this is not for everybody. We're talking about to a chosen frozen. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very small number.
Okay, but still, but the small number needs answers because they
do.
They go to the apostles at the gates for answers. The pastors at the Southern Baptist Convention are going to turn them over to the Burn in Hell Society.
Well, before we go, I want to hit one thing that we really I need to address me personally, for those that are listening. And that deals with the fact that there are 20 million 18 to 25-year-old American women in our country. 20 million. All right? Out of the 350 million Americans we got 20 million 18 to 25-year-olds that are female. All right? Now, of those 20 million, 10 million have an OnlyFans account. Once you just process that, there's 10 million U.S. American girls 18 to 25 who have an OnlyFans account. Essentially digital strip club.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, and I know you're all disgusted by it. I'm disgusted by it. Every grandfather's disgusted by it. We're not suggesting that for us, but what we are suggesting, and what I'm telling you is that you're watching the evidence. You're literally watching the train wreck of this crazy thinking that cut out 2/3 of covenant relationships authorized by the king to cover multiple personality types. And instead, we hugged on to the one type we liked.
Yep.
Just like we hugged on to the one gift of the fivefold we like. We only have pastors.
And threw everybody on food stamps, threw everybody on welfare, Mama Beastie's breasts, instead of the breasts, instead of the vineyard of Israel providing, we've thrown these women into the state to become wards of the state, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, or worse yet, Catholic charities. Guess what? Catholic charities are going to pay that widow's bill, okay? When we're supposed to take her in, like you say, the assembly's supposed to be her husband until we find a suitable husband within the assembly. In other words, the assembly will find a suitable husband.
Who's going to give her away?
Of the assembly.
Come on.
Not on a bar stool and not on fans only.
She needs to be given away.
From within.
Who's walking her down the aisle? This is my brother, my sister, my mother. Yahusha had to reset it all. That's why the ecclesia is so important. Okay, you cannot skip it. And again, without understanding, and here's what I want to ask everybody who's a critic. I want to ask all critics. I get it. You don't agree. You got this idea. You think it should be a certain way. I get it. I totally get it. I love you guys. I totally get your disagreement. Here's my question for you. How do you solve biblically and in covenant? How do you solve the 10 million women that are OnlyFans models now? How do you solve that?
You pray for them. That's how you solve it.
How do you solve
pray.
it?
Just
the
pray.
reason why that the reason why that's an acceptable answer, the reason why taking somebody who slept with some other woman's husband and now is pregnant and you still throw a baby shower for her, okay? We have to stop this endorsement of sin and wrecking homes and wrecking destruction, wanton destruction, because we can't accept other models that may work, maybe not for you. Okay, maybe not for you. Good. Glad you're good. But other people might need that. And you're telling them, no, can't do it that way. So guess what? We end up with 10 million OnlyFans models because your plan A, they didn't want that. They look down that
road. And guess who the Lord of the fans only model is? S.A.10. Guess who the father of our model is, which is monogamy, polygyny, or singlehood? Abba Yahuwah. Guess who the father of fans only is? S, because there's only two daddies. There's only two spiritual daddies.
That's right. So because what does this produce? What does this produce? Guys have to think strategically, like a military conflict. The devil needs soldiers. He needs bodies he can inhabit. The best bodies he can inhabit, going to say it out loud, are bastards. Okay? Best bodies for him to inhabit. So he wants a whole society full of unmarried women having children. Because that just gives him walk-ins.
Leeway.
Okay? Yeah. So what does covenant do? Covenant is a door. Covenant is protection. Covenant provides cover that keeps the devil on the outside.
And when we don't do it according to Torah, let me give you an example. It came up in my ministry Friday night. And this precious woman who's a giant in my eyes spiritually, she says, I was so abandoned by men. I was neglected, raped by all this worldly fans-only mentality. Right. She says, I did the unthinkable. I had to sell my body. Talking about what the devil wants for you instead of what we're talking about, which are Torah options.
Which only a kadosh woman can do, by the way.
I had to sell my body, watch this, to get my little girl, who was, 7, 6, medicine. Because without the medicine, she would die. She couldn't breathe or whatever the case was. She says, looking back, I'm still ashamed. And I'm saying to myself, no, this is part of your testimony. That's right. This is what Satan has. If you guys can pretend that Exodus 21 verse 10 is not in the Bible. Keep pretending. Then you're not a Bible believer. Go read Exodus 21:10. He put up with it. No, he didn't. He didn't put up with anything. He ordained it, but not for most.
Not for most. And the reason why, it's almost like you graduate. And if you can't handle peacemaking, even as a single person, some people couldn't even handle being a child and growing up and not having conflict with their parents. They can't even handle that. So you can't even handle that. You have no business in a marriage, by the way. I mean, you disrespect you dishonor your mom and your father. You got no business in a marriage. And this is why they fail, folks. We got terrible counsel, people thrown together. He told me 20 years ago when I actively stopped doing marriage ceremonies, he pulled me out of them. He said, these are celebrations of adultery or celebrations of fornication.
Can you clarify that? I know we're almost out of time, but can you clarify? Because that's important. I want to hear that. What's that all about?
He pulled me from, I stopped doing weddings in the mid 2000s because he called them celebrations of fornication. That you were trying to repent, instead of repenting for fornication, you were just slapping marriage. You needed to go through a process. Yes, you need to get married, but you need to go through a process of repentance, okay, for the accelerant that you added, for lack of a better way to say that, to being diplomatic, and a season of repentance. One time a man came to me. He said, I want you to marry me. me and my wife. And I said, okay, that's great. I love that concept. Let's do it. And they've been together and they come into meetings together and so forth. I said, no, that's great. I already knew the deal, but I wanted to ask. And I said, so let me ask you a question. Where do you live? And he goes, well, I live at, and told me where he lived. I said, well, where does she live? And he told me. And I said, oh, so you're already living together. Uh-huh. So, do you have any family in the neighborhood or area? Oh, my mom, not far. I said, good. Why don't you go home? You want me to marry you? He goes, yeah. I said, you go home and you pack. And you go sleep on your mom's couch for 3 months. And you give her something that you cannot buy. And I want you to show her honor and repent for having touched her before you married her. And I want you to show her honor. And for that season, I want you to stay away and just pray and work together and walk together. And then and then I will marry you. When they got married, they both died since then. So I can't even call them up and get this, but they were beautiful people. But I remember that she came to me after the ceremony when they finally did it, and he did it. He stayed away and he wrote me a beautiful note, and she thanked me because she said, I would never have gotten that gift of honor if you hadn't insisted the way that you did. And so she was grateful. And of course he was elated because he wouldn't have thought of it either. And it just made for it made for a beautiful union. So did it mean that they couldn't get married or that life couldn't go on or that they couldn't have a berakah? No, it meant there needed to be a moment where you had to stop and say, hold on a minute, we may have blown this foundationally. And we need to stop and we need to repent. We need to apply some oil. We need to repent, ask Yahuwah to have forgiveness and mercy on us and come back together and get married and do this properly. So is that provisioned in the Torah? Absolutely. You burn toward that virgin, you got to marry her. But there's a process to this.
That's exactly. I have done the exact same thing over the years. When I had the same couples, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll marry you, but right now, you got to show a willingness to do it his way. I'm not asking for a lot, 2 months, 8 weeks. I'm not asking for a lot, just to have a fresh start. Because you already belong to each other in terms of lakach, in terms of ona, in terms of bo. You already or came into her. But just to show Yahuwah that you're under divine government, the counsel that you gave, that as Yahuwah lives, I have given it minimum 5 to 6 times in my ministry. You see? And let me tell you something, I'm going to say it again because of the validation. I would not do this broadcast. Most people would not do this broadcast with me because I'm too hot to touch. But Yahuwah put me and Peter together. Not because we're birds of a feather, because we are on a rung where we don't seek people's smirks and faces. We have a task and we discharge our task.
Amen.
And I would not do this broadcast. They wouldn't do it with me. So I am committed. I'm going to make a new covenant with Peter that I'm committed to do this as long as both of us have the health and the blessings from Yahuwah to do it.
It is my honor, and it's a highlight of my week. And I'm very grateful that we get this chance together and to tackle difficult topics that people are afraid to touch. And I know this is a very, very sensitive one. And I'm very sensitive to my sisters who I think feel threatened by the notion. And that is inappropriate. And it is also undermining what Yahuwah intended. In fact, he means the opposite. There are some that just need strengthening. And that's exactly what happens in those situations. That's not always the case. So those of you who are able, who are walking in a certain way that you can maintain each other the way that you originally designed, there's nothing wrong with that either. Don't anybody feel condemnation for the covenant walk you are in.
Right.
The key is find your covenant walk.
And the key is there are 3 venues, not 1.
Yes, and find your
covenant walk. What Psalm 106 says? He says, do not limit the Holy One of Israel.
That's right.
Like our fathers did.
That's right.
So when Yahuwah gives us three options, fans, what do they call that again? Fans thing.
OnlyFans, right?
That's not one of them.
That's not one of them.
Online dating is not one of them. In other words, Yahuwah gives us three options, and then you allow the Ruach to say which option is for me. He's not
And we don't endorse any others.
Constraining serpent. He's not a
Right.
constraining serpent like the devil who says, this is the way, filth, covenant breaking, walk in it. Yahuwah
Right.
gives us three options. So ladies, relax. Instead of saying, this teaching, I may lose my... If this teaching could make you lose your husband's not worth having to begin with.
Well,
because Yahuwah gives you three options. That's my point.
we do need to reason together, and that
reason together.
Yes. So we need to keep reasoning together, and again, there are situations, and I say this in true love. This got nothing to do with, the sort of extracurricular activities of marriage. I want you to think more Schindler's List here. Okay. There are times when a stable family might need to take in that which is needing that shelter, and Yahuwah may ordain that. No one needs to condemn them for that. So again, what we have to be very careful about is just because something isn't applicable to you or is your calling, that you don't throw other people under the bus.
And what do you? That's right.
Not understanding the circumstances.
That's correct. That's correct. And what do you think Remnant House Ministries is? I don't know. I don't know everything that goes on over there, but I know one thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are single women being covered there until a man is raised up within the assembly, not on a bar stool.
Right.
And that man may be mono, that man may be plural. Peter's going to do the right thing for the woman, what her best situation is, what's best for her.
That's right. And until then, we don't mind being the house of the strong and courageous. We don't mind. Let's say there's a young lady who has 3 children and she's now out there uncovered. You don't have to have a marriage relationship to cover a lot of elements there. You can have covenant in the fellowship sense, and that does a lot as well. So, and again, somebody might take her on and say, oh, I think we can make a family out of this. I'll be father to these fatherless children. That can happen. But where does it happen from? You're expecting it, like you said, to happen from a bar stool or from Facebook and wonder why it goes wrong.
That's right. We need to conclude because this can go on.
We could go on indefinitely, but I love this topic.
This is such a needed topic that we can go on for hours, but we have a lot of Baptist butts in front of the microphone.
I think they're all waking up too. I think
I'm trying to make a joke, Peter. I'm trying to make a joke. I was going to say we have a lot of Baptist butts. You didn't even let me get my joke out. Okay, go ahead.
Man, you and your Baptist butt. But you know what? I'll tell you what. You woke them up, and I love you for this. I love the fact that you had the courage to ask hard questions, to push the envelope, and to say, what is it that we've accepted that without, and you weren't looking at it from the same way I look at it. I look at things from a different, more of an empirical evidence sort of mindset. And I'm looking at the evidence, the hard data, right? And it's just confirming everything you're saying.
And I didn't teach this 20 years ago, 15 years ago to accumulate wives. I taught it because I was commissioned to bring remedy.
Right.
I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I want everybody to understand. I didn't do this to justify my lifestyle. I taught this with the stones, with the arrows, with the slingshots coming at me.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be an OnlyFans if everyone had listened.
I did this to bring remedy to our sisters.
Yep. And instead now we have digital strip clubs.
Se acabó.